Let's start. This is the roundtable from FSI with the main topic of the off-season period, this period in which actually we are involved in some leagues, especially in Europe leagues. And we are a group of professionals from FSI that we are going to talk about our experience in this period of time. We have 4 professors. We are professionals from FSI. The first is Alfredo Santalla. Alfredo is the director of studies of FSI. He's very, in the last years, he has researched and he has put the focus on the training also. So he can contribute greatly to this roundtable. After, with Alfredo is Sergio Hidalgo. Sergio is a fitness coach in Dubai. Actually, he's also ex-student of FSI, and he was the person that generated the idea to do this roundtable about off-season. So, Sergio, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And then we have Franco Impellicheri. Franco is professor of FSI and is a very well-known person in research and also in practice, all related about conditioning in football. So Franco, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much, my pleasure.
And in the last position, my good friend Luis Suarez is a top researcher, for me, it's a top person and the strength conditioning actually in Basel. And Luis, it's an honor always have you here, my friend. The sound of Luis is not good. Try to.
No, sorry. Yes. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be here with all of you and to talk and discuss about this very important topic.
Yes, and actually, Luis, we are in off-season too,
Yes. I'm. My mobile is on fire because now the players is asking me about a lot of things, and also in our case, we give some heart rate belts to the players, not to measure the heart rate, but it's more or less to know if they are doing the training or not. Because with Polar you can connect to a big server that we have, and then the players don't know this, but also you can see. Because they have connected the belt with the mobile to the app of Polar, and then we have the connection of everything, and then we know exactly where they are doing the runs, with the GPS, and also at the end the heart rate is it's not important. It's to know that more or less they are doing the training, because this is the important thing, and arrive to the pre-season with a more or less good fitness.
So, Sergio, if you want, let's start with your questions, and then we can start the debates. And we can incorporate ideas in each one. So start with the question and let's go.
For sure. As I was talking with Bernardo, like I started to think about that because everyone has different situations. After finish the master, you are in my work in that situation, and you have a different context that maybe you can think that you cannot apply everything that maybe you are teaching us. That's why I talked to Bernardo to maybe have this moment and share this talk that maybe you can guide us the best way to apply all the concepts. No, my first question is about the load management. Here we had a different situation. We have here a situation where we needed to stop before than normal, and then we had like a gap of almost 2.5 months, 3 months. Then my first question about this off season is how should be the load during this period? Should be like increasing, progressing from, let's make 2 weeks off, start with the minimal effective dose, and after progress, or should be like training from the beginning because it's a huge gap, and then maybe you will lose a lot of benefits in the capacities, and then you should start from the first moment. Then this is my first question, more or less, how you can manage, or what will be your point of view with your background for sure, like about this question.
Okay, great question. So let's start. I would like to add that the first variable that we could consider in an off season is, like Sergio is actually exposing, is the length of the off season, because like Sergio is telling us, in some leagues, like for example MLS or your league, you have a gap of 3 months or near 3 months to 1.5, 3 months. And in other cases, we have gaps completely different, you know? So I think one of the first variable to consider is the length. So let's start to think about who wants to start? Alfredo?
Well,
in respect of the length, for example, the first thing I have in my mind is, okay, let's see in which variables we could find the training and how these variables could evolutionate in time. And then on this evolution, then we could think how to train.
Okay. Well, Sergio's question is amazing. In fact, I cannot answer it, okay, because it's quite difficult. But if we think about what happened in a football player in an off season, if the player stop training, there are lots of the conditioning processes. Perhaps in muscle are perhaps the quickest processes. That means the classical studies in the training adaptation to the training are focusing 4 and 8 weeks. And in 4 weeks, for example, you have a decrease of aerobic enzymes about the 20 or 30%, depending on type 1 or type 2 fever, which is quite huge. If you go to 8 weeks of the training, perhaps you can achieve a decrease of 40% of aerobic enzyme, like sulfinato deshydrogenase. Also, glycolysis enzymes, for example, the pyruvato deshydrogenase, phosphofructokinase. And there is perhaps not very clear the window, so the time period. There is a decrease in GLUT4 transporter and the sensibility to insulin of those receptors of GLUT4 transporter, which is quite important, because if there is a decrease of sensitivity to insulin, you have to increase the cortisol level to maintain the blood glucose, which is not interesting in soccer players. And also there is a decrease in cross-sectional area of the fever types, muscle fibers, about between the 7 to 80%, perhaps 11%, depending on the study. Obviously, they are all studies not performed in professional soccer because they need muscle biopsies, which is a very invasive technique, that's obvious. But perhaps at level of muscle, we have a decrease in enzyme activities. We have a decrease in cross-sectional area. We have a little bit of muscle transition. Normally we lose a little bit of percentage of type 1 fever. We're talking about 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And of course, we have a very, very quick, I talk about 3 weeks in a decrease in capillary density, which is very important, especially in processes of recovery from each training. And perhaps in muscle are the most quicker, but the less controversial, the less dangerous, I mean. Perhaps, for my opinion, the most important decrease, or you need a good window of opportunity in the off-season, is to reestablish or to recover the hormone status. I mean, the study says that football players in a normal season, a very long season, in which they compete in national league and cup or international league, of course, the end of the season is characterized by a decrease in testosterone and increase in cortisol, which means we decrease the anabolic hormone, we increase the catabolic hormone, and the first 2 weeks of the off-season are designed only to return or replace this or rebalance this situation, trying to improve the anaerobic hormone, and trying to decrease the cortisol, which is very damaged. I mean, the cortisol is catabolic, but also the cortisol inhibit the testosterone secretion, which had double effect. It increased the catabolism and it decreased the anabolism processes. So perhaps talking about the question of Sergio, after those typical 2 to 3 weeks of not training or almost resting to try to recover the status, the hormone status. A part of that, we have many weeks in order to start giving some stimulus. Perhaps Franco and Luis and you are more, your opinion is better in that aspect, and could start to increase or to recover this process of angiogenesis, enzyme activity increase, of course. We don't know too much about respiratory muscle function in the training and retraining after off-season. I think it's quite important because it controls the pH blood regulation, for example, a part of the respiratory processes, of course. And perhaps, in my opinion, my modest opinion, in the point of view of exercise physiology, the less important or the most easy to recover are the blood adaptations. I mean, in order to increase the plasma volume, you can play with heat in summer holidays, quite easy. In order to increase the EPO activity, you have to put some intensity. You can get this during the pre-season camp or training camp, of course. So perhaps the most important in terms of physiology is to give time to recover the hormone status, and after that increase the stimulus. I don't know how to do it in 9 or in 10 or 2 months off-season period. I don't know how to do it, of course. And perhaps those are the most important aspects in terms of physiology we can take account about the design of the processes.
Okay, good one, Alfredo. Luis, Franco, do you want to add something?
Maybe Jesus, who is the one in activity, the researcher in activity, can give some tips.
The first thing from my point of view is I only have this experience in China. When we arrived to China, the players started training after 3 months of season period, and this was horrible. This was horrible. In China we have mainly two groups, no? The top players like Alexander Pato, Axel Witsel, Anthony Modeste, okay, and then the Chinese players, 2-3 Chinese players with good habits, and the rest of the players. You know, the rest of the players, no good habits. The players arrive fat, with a very low levels of everything, you know, and this was horrible because we plan a pre-season, you know, with the first 2 weeks. We were in Aspire in Doha with more or less several days with double session. You know, you more or less you program, you organize a periodization of the pre-season, and then we have to change a lot of things, because after 2-3 days the players were destroyed, you know, because and also how we train, because we train mainly with the ball, you know, and also the players in this case, these players, especially the Chinese players, they arrive to the pre-season with not optimal fitness to start the adaptation process to play football. Exactly. You know, and then for me is clear at the end, one club, like I don't know, in Dubai or in China or this club, these leagues that have a big off-season period, like 2-3 months, at the end the club is paying to the players all the season. The club is paying to the staff all the season. then from my point of view, is not professional to give 3 months off to the players. You know, is maybe you can find, or you have to find different options, like, for example, to organize a training camp, then give again to the players 1 week, then start to training again. You know, we have to, or maybe another option, because it's I only have this experience with the Chinese team, and how the players arrived to the position was horrible. Maybe if I'm the same experiences with another club in Japan, for example, is different, no? Because maybe the players have a better habits to train, to maintain or minimize the decrease of the fitness. But in this case, it was horrible. Like, if I'm working for a club with this situation, I will try to find a solution, but don't give never the players 3 months off. You know, okay, the players have a program, have a program to minimize the decrease of the fitness, but this is not enough, because if the players are professional soccer players, they cannot be 3 months with touching a ball. For me, the best solution is to try to find, maybe you can give the players 5 weeks, with, of course, with a training for more or less maintain the fitness in this period, and then you can have 2 weeks of training, like a small training camp, then give 2 weeks off. You know, it's try to. But my experience in this case with the Chinese team was horrible, because at the end you start the preseason and you have the first 2 weeks is only to improve the fitness. You know, is the quality of the training with the ball is so poor. And if because at the end, when you start to training football, you need the fitness, of course, but also you need more things. You know, and this is my experience about this.
In this way, Luis, I never had this length of season. I always have been off season maximum 7 weeks, even 2 months. Never I have, but I can, because for me the off season is similar to an injury. For example, I remember the lesson of Franco about the training. He was talking about short training, and Franco, you compare the off season with an injury, and at the end, when you have an injury, a muscle injury, or at the end it's a detraining process, and you cannot train like you would like to, because you have the injury, and you have to train around the injury to avoid the detraining, and then after you start like do a training especially to recover the adaptation. So when Luis was talking, I was remembering some cases in which, for example, when you have a muscle injury at the end of the season, a player has a muscle injury at the end of the season in the last month, for example, a similar case, you know, it's a player that at the end is 4 weeks or 6 weeks before the season is out, then he gets this injury, and then he takes holidays, you know, or the player that comes from, for example, a posterior cruciate ligament. This is a case I have. Posterior cruciate ligament recovery. He's in the last month of recovery, and now it's holidays. So it's like he comes from a big detraining because of the injury, and then comes the off season. So for sure, this is a situation that we have, no? And for me, what I see is that here we have several variables. The first thing is, how is the player when they start the off-season period? How is the player? Because it's very different, the context. Can be a player that has been playing everything, a player that doesn't play, a player that comes with some injuries or not, the age of the player, the habits, like Luis said, how is the player in his daily life? So player here, then the off-season is the time, but another variable is the time here, and here in this time, which are the conditions? Because Luis knows very well, and Franco, you have players that they go to travel in a hotel without gym in a beach in which they cannot run, or there are players that go to a place in which the first thing they look for is the facilities to train. So what happened here, the length, and the other aspect for me important is how is the length of the preseason? When do you start the competition? Sometimes there are leagues with longer preseason. Okay, like Luis said, maybe you in the first week, you need to focus in body composition and start to increase fitness because the players are not ready to play football without,
yes, they can play football, but at the end is, in my experience, is they are not prepared to they are not prepared to train good volumes, specific training, because at the end is after 2-3 training sessions, you have to stop. You have to give them 1 day off, something like this, because they are destroyed and they are in a very, very high risk of suffering an injury.
Exactly, for injury. Yes, so this is what I see. I don't know, Sergio, your question.
Yeah, like at the end, this year has been different here because normally we finish the competition end of May, okay? But in that year, the competition didn't appear. Then at the end, they were just training that they decided, because even the other clubs, we couldn't play, because at the end, the other clubs, they are also taking holidays, and at the end, they decide that is something like here is very like very, very typical to start the beginning of August, and to change these ideas is maybe difficult. Then it is a different, of course, a different kind of a season, but we try it. We couldn't. We know that 3 months is a lot. We try to change it, but at the end, it's something out of our hands. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problem. So it's not just a question of how to handle the training load or what to do. Sometimes there's also a cultural issue behind. So the question is to understand what you can do within the context. Because if you are in a country where they are not used to train during holiday, of course, in that case, maybe you should try to add something, not because just a little is enough, because you cannot do more. So you have to find a compromise with what would be the best from a theoretical point of view and what can be done in practice. So in my opinion, the first point is not to understand how the training load should progress or this kind of thing, but is to understand what you can really do with these guys. Because if you have in your mind that you do, I don't know, twice a week aerobic, twice strength and something like that, but you know that they are not going to doing that, it's pointless that you prepare all these kind of programs. So in my opinion, the first point is to understand what you realistically can do with these players, and if you have the support of the team, the society, or whatever. After that, it's worth to discuss how to progress or how to program the training. Consider that I was recently discussing with a fitness coach of a Serie A team, because there were players during the season that, based on some analysis with Martino Franchi, that Jesus and we all know, that we were thinking how we can do a training to try to change some morphological, to influence some morphological characteristic of the muscles. During the season, you can't do that. You cannot train hard the muscles. So we were thinking, okay, after the season, maybe we give 1 or 2 weeks of recovery, also psychological, and after we go hard with muscle training. So in that case, this was a program for just one specific or few specific players that had something to do, because it's impossible to do during the season. So that's just an example of another kind of situation. Yeah. So I think your question is complex because it depends really on the context and situation. So if you have now 2 months and a half, the first thing you have to consider whether your players would do what you suggest. If you say, okay, we do this during these 2 months, and mainly and this is a problem when they have to do by themselves, because if you are not done with them, it's a problem. And what Jesus is doing is this exactly what I did in other sports, where we had also a system using the heart rate, but actually I didn't care about the heart rate. I wanted just to see if when they said they were training, if there was they were doing actually something. So in that case, I wasn't really concerned about the load. I was more concerned that they did something, even a bit. It was okay. It was okay. So this just to say, Sergio, that trying to understand how to handle the training load is important, but there are most of the time other more important issues that you have to address before thinking about the theory of the training load. I don't know if this kind of answer maybe disappoints you, but, you know, that's the reality.
100%. Luis, for example, I remember one of the when we do test or when we, because at the end today we have the possibility to test the player during trainings. Some years before we had to do a specific test. Today we could, you know, every session is a training, it's a testing if we want. So the idea is that I consider that after the end of the season, at the end of the season, before go holidays, I used in my teams, you know, when I let them to see their data and the compromise, like Franco said, the compromise of them to come back in some variables at the same level. For example, body composition, you know, it's simple. So if the player has this compromise to come with this body composition, but in another teams, Franco, do you know better than me for sure, in professional American team leagues, you know, like an NBA or something, you have economical pressure, you know, pressure to come in your level in different tests. So at the end, it's the responsibility of the player, like Luis said, because the club continue paying them during the holidays. So don't know in this way.
I think that normally I would say that maybe 1 or 2 weeks of rest, also psychological, it's okay. And Alfredo mentioned about some potential changes, and that which is true, but within 1 or 2 weeks is nothing that you cannot recover in a short time. If it starts to be 4 weeks, it's a bit more, complicated. Even if, I mean, it's a 4 or 6 weeks of off season, you need 1 or 2 weeks before they can start training really, and that's what Jesus mentioned. So if you have 5 weeks of preseason, something like that, and maybe you have also some friendly match, and at the end you don't have so much time. And if you miss 1 or 2 weeks because they are fatty or the condition, that's a lot. But I agree with Bernardo. You have to find a compromise with the players and understand what they can realistically do. And the training load, that's something that I would like a bit to underline. Now there's a lot of interest in the training load management, let's say, but the load management is secondary to the goals of the training. So the first point is to understand what characteristic you want to keep. After that, because if it's more strength oriented, maybe you handle the training load in a different way than aerobic or this kind of other characteristics. So the first point is to understand what physical characteristic you would like to keep. Personally, I'm always very concerned about neuromuscular characteristics, because aerobically it's relatively easy to have them coming back to a good condition, and also to keep a good aerobic condition. If you do even once a week for 2-3 weeks some short intensity training, you can keep a bit, or if you alternate some intensity and moderate intensity and moderate, you can keep easily. The problem is neuromuscular, in my opinion. I don't know if Jesus has this
Totally
the
agree.
same
Totally agree.
concern.
I'm totally agree with Franco. I don't know. I can share my screen or not? Yes, no.
Of course.
You can see the PowerPoint.
Yes.
Okay, this is the more or less the PowerPoint I prepare for my players. You know, I'm okay. At the end is in this period. At the end, the objective is in the phase 1 is the off-season period. No, we have to try to more or less minimize the changes in body composition. As Franco say, I'm totally agree. Intermittent aerobic fitness is very easy then, but the most important thing for me is the strength, no, the muscle, the force, the power, and also the acceleration and the speed. And then this is the phase 2 for us will be the precision, the adaptation to train. For example, in our case, we will have 10 days, only 10 days for just training. And then we will finish these 10 days with a friendly game. And then the phase 3 will be the adaptation to play. Now we will have 2 weeks with a lot of friendly games, no? Okay, but this is interesting that, as Franco said, for example, this is the data of our players in Fiorentina. Of course, at the end of the season, when they arrive to the precision, the fat mass increase. But one of the most important thing that we saw this data when we started the second year in Florence was that you can see how the lean mass, the decrease in the lean mass was very high, you know, and at the end, if your decrease in the force, in the power, in the lean mass is higher, then you will have a higher risk of injury, you know. And I remember the second precision in Argentina that we try to introduce during the precision a lot of strength training session, also for lower body, of course, in accordance to the training on the pitch, and also for upper body, you know, to try to start the season, to start the in-season period with more or less the same. And you can see in the number 3, in the third column, the end of the training period is more or less the same lean mass or fat free mass when the players finish the season. And this is also very important for us. And as you can see, okay, I show the players the objective of the retraining period, minimize the negative changes, the adaptation to play soccer in the precision will be faster with a lower risk of injury. And this is another important thing that you speak about that, Berna, is how, no? Because you can, in my experience, in all the clubs, I organize a lot of different vacation training plans for the players. But at the end, I'm in a point in this moment that I want to give the players easy and simple training contents that can be adapted to different individual environments. Because as you say, Berna, is we don't know. For example, I have players in a hotel. I have players they are in an apartment. I have players there, you know, and at the end we have to try to give easy things for training, and they can do more or less these things in all the environments, the different environments, no? In addition to this general program, individual adaptations, because every player is different than other players, and also individual trainings based on the weak points. And this is how we organize, no? For example, they have 1 day off, one week off, sorry, and then the first week we start with 3 training sessions with endurance training, lower body, upper body, and then the second week they have 4 training sessions, And the third week they have third training sessions, and then we will have the second machine. We will have after the second machine 2 days off because we don't know how will be the reaction in the second machine. And then on 21 we will start with some testing, you know, to know that how the players will start the precision. This is also an important, because at the end, for example, if we will on 21, 22, we will test more or less the endurance, the power, the different things. And of course, after 4 weeks, they will improve. We know this, no? But also I think that this is good for the players, because if the players know that they will be tested after the vacation period in order to know if they did the work and how they comes in body composition, how they comes in aerobic, how they comes in lean mass, in power, in a lot of things. They will be more worried to do this job during the holidays, you know, and also of course in our club, if one player comes with a very high levels of fat mass, he has to pay, you know, because we have a rules, and all the players know the rules, and they are professionals, you know. And then I can show you in a very fast way. Okay, this is more or less the 10 endurance trainings I organize for the players, different type of trainings like this, you know, is like this, and hit short intervals, with more neuromuscular load, 2 different options, and also anaerobic training, and also high speed training, and also with peak of speeds at the end. So I prepare for the players different videos of lower body to take in account, and also for some players, for example, they have to improve the acceleration. They have equipment also for make these additional training sessions. You know, the same for the upper body and core. In this case, I give the players 3 or 4 videos to have an idea. For example, if they are in a hotel with a gym and they can do these exercises, is excellent. If they don't have this possibility, all of them has 1 TRX from the club, you know, and they can do the other job, you know. And at the end also different core exercise and exercise also for mobility, and then okay, this is then we have here the thing for the as Franco say, for the heart rate, but not for measure the heart rate. It's more or less to know that they are doing the training, and this is the how we organize in our case.
This is very good, because this is absolutely real. Like Luis said, you know, it did very simple. Yes. And Luis, before this, they had 2 weeks or 2 weeks off completely, or
1 week.
1 week. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
1 week, because in our case, you know, in
Liga
and also in Switzerland, we have 2 vacation periods, one in holiday, one in Christmas, you know, and one now. And then the program for our players will be one week doing nothing. Or the players make some jogging, if they want to play tennis, you know. And then we have these 3 weeks that I show you. The first week only 3 days training. They have a double session, or they can do it together. At the beginning strength, and the HIIT, for example, and the second week they have 4 training sessions, and the third week they have 3 training sessions, and we have the vaccination. This is the general program. The general program, the players at least have to do this, at least. In addition to this, where some players, not all, but maybe 40% of the players, they have additional work. One player for improve the acceleration capacity, other players because they are more propense to take fat, you know, and they have more aerobic sessions, you know. Is other players for the weak points, for the more for the injury. For example, we have players with big scars in the hamstring, but they use this time also to work in this weak point. You know, it's more or less as we organize in this. But at the beginning, years ago, I organized a very complex vacation training plans, and at the end, the players don't do it. You know, don't do it. And also, we have to take in account. I have a lot of not too much, but maybe 7-8 players that they have a personal coach for this period.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in touch with the personal coaches because, for example, one example, I have one player. He's training with a personal coach of boxing. You know, in the gym, and he's okay. It's good the training that they are doing, but he has to run because then when he arrives and we will test him in the aerobic fitness or intermittent fitness, he has to be ready to run. Okay, the work that he's doing is good, but he has to make the runs, no? And then is at the end, and is the objective is because as I show you, the aim for us is that in this period, try to maintain the fitness is very, very difficult, almost impossible, but try that the decrease in the fitness will be not too much high, you know, in body composition, in aerobic fitness, especially as Franco say, in the muscle, in the power, in the force, you know, because from the first day we will start training football, and if they come with more or less good fitness, the adaptation to the football and to play football will be fast and with less injury risk.
100%. Sergio, I don't know. We have been talking a lot.
No, which is okay because we are mixing and I am getting more or less the idea, and it's quite good.
Yeah, I think, Sergio, I don't know if you have another question that is out of this conversation, but I think we are giving a lot of ideas or tips for everyone, you know, is listeners. For example, I like as conclusion, Franco, Luis, Alfredo, I think 1 to 2 weeks, like Franco said, is good for mental, because this is another point we didn't talk about. Is mental, the need of mental unplugging, you know, like Luis said, Luis in the league in which he have 2 vacation periods, but and now we could think in another league like Fiorentina, Luis, or in Italy or here in Spain, in which you compete during 11 months practically. So at the end, the player, and especially this player that play internationally, I think it's another case. It's a different case, you know.
Yeah, you have to adapt. For example, we have players in the Euro Cup, and then they will join the team later.
Exactly.
Yes, and then, and for example, in Fiorentina, if I remember, we have 6 weeks of whole vacation, and then we give the players the first 2 weeks more or less doing nothing or what they want to do, and then 4 weeks training before the preseason. But I remember in Fiorentina, 80% of the players was playing with the national team, you know, and at the end was very difficult because you start the preseason with 25 players, and then 18 of these players will not be with you, you know, and it's very difficult because especially for the tactical training, you know, because you don't have maybe you have the players that you will play with these players this season. You will have these players 1 week or 2 weeks before starting the competition.
Yeah, this is the what I've been living in Real Madrid, for example, is same, you know. And another thing I would like to add is that there is a great individual differences, and this is very important. You know, we have players like everyone that cannot lose one day without training, because if they are 2 days without training, they need to train. You know, this is one like maybe every one of us. But on the other hand, you have players that really they want to unplug and they want to do completely free. Some days they play tennis, or like Luis said, boxing or surf. I had a player that wanted to do surfing in holidays. So at the end, it's like always we are talking. Training is a process in which you need to know the other person as maximum and have the confidence to give advices to him. Like Luis preparing, for example, this planning of Luis. It's very good that you show, Luis, because it puts you real the situation, how you are doing. Like Luis said, at minimum, if they do this, I'm sure we are going to lose little. You know, it's like the less effective stimulus. You know, the minimum effective stimulus we can give. So, Sergio, tell me if you want to ask another questions, another thing, because we are finishing. We are near.
No, I think it's okay. Maybe I wanted to.
For example, you have, I don't know, do you remember when we were talking first time age about
about ages, because at the moment I am. Hopefully one day I will get a high level, but at the moment also the reality that also I expressed to Bernardo last time, like sometimes we are not working, the students at the moment, we are not reaching that level, and we have the reality that we are in at this moment in a club working with players between, let's say, 13, 14 years old to 18, 19 years old. And also how will you face this off season? Will you face this off season for all the ages in the same way? You will take into account another aspects with the youngest, and that they are not the same with the oldest.
Very good question. What do you say, Alfredo, Franco, Luis?
In my experience, it's like in the real life, in the team, no, in the day by day. You have old players and you have very young players. Of course, the young players has to train more, from my point of view, but not only conditioning, also technical and tactical training. You know, for example, in the program that I show you, almost all the young players has additional trainings or aerobic and aerobic capacity, or for sure the strength. You know, because for example, our young players, almost all of them, is one weak point is the strength. No, the upper body and the lower body strength is a weak point. And we have, for example, one very good players with 18 years old, is the number 10 of Argentina, under 21, and he's a very good player. But for example, in the position that he's playing is usually a number 10. He can play as a number 8. He has to fight a lot, no? He has to jump. He has a lot of duels. He has a lot of high intensity action fighting, and it's a weak point for this player. It's just one case, or one player, young player that we have he's playing usually as a number 6. He's a pivot, you know, and he's a very good talent player, but he has to improve also the power, the force. You know, from my point of view, because it's difficult when you have, for example, we have players with 33 years old, They play in Bundesliga, they play also in England, and they are again playing in Basel. And with these players is another different way. No, if I'm happy if they do this program, I'm happy. I don't know if they will do it, but with this, I'm very happy. And in comparison with the young players has to train more. This is my opinion.
Yes, I think, I don't know, in respect of academies, 13, 14, 15-year-old or 16-year-old, in which they are not in the context of first team, like Luis was talking, my opinion or my experience is not so high in the academies. But yes, I know, and also in FSI that we have great, we could organize another talking about conditioning in academies, because this is more oriented to professional level, we could say. But my question, my thinking or my opinion in this way is that in academies, what we should promote is playing football and increasing the volume during holidays, because of and like Luis said, maybe oriented the strength training, maybe a great maybe it's possible to orient the strength training and the habits of training to prevent injuries, so combination of exposed to football and at the same time strength oriented training and some habits like mobility very oriented to prevent injuries. But we could organize, Sergio, for future another about conditioning in academies, that this is another topic, big one. So and in this conditioning we could include also what happened with off season, because for example last season has been impressive what they have been living with the COVID, with the lockdown, players with 13-year-old practically 1 year without playing football, and now they are receiving the players in the academies and they are having incredible surprises, when they receive players after this crazy COVID lockdown. So if you want, let's do it for another meeting.
Sure.
And
So
also, I want to ask also Franco, because I was thinking now, the first week of preseason is all our players are in a very high risk of injury because the chronic low is 0. What do you think about this, Franco?
I think that's a problem, and I didn't want to say anything, but I noticed that in your training program there were no Nordic hamstring, which is a bit dangerous.
Yeah.
So I think starting without Nordic hamstring and with after 0 load, they are almost going to die the first 2 weeks.
No, not all the video was so long. I passed the slide.
Okay. I'm sure it's plenty. Now, a joke apart, that's a problem, because I agree with Luis, and it's a delicate issue now because there's also some trend, but I think that young players should focus on strength training, not only to improve, but also to improve strength, but also to improve the technique, because otherwise we have to work with 22, 25 years old that we spend months just to teach them to train, basically. And now there's someone saying we have to focus more on speed. Yes, of course you can if they have already a good level of strength, but most of the time they don't. So I think in the academies they should focus more on strength training, sprinting, good technique for all these kind of exercises. And I mean, aerobic training, at the end of the day, it's the easiest part, honestly. This is what I think. I mean, it's not very complicated. Neuromuscular and strength training is much more critical to also in terms of injury prevention. I think injury prevention starts very early, Luisa knows better than me. Sometimes you have players, they are at risk, they have no strength,
It's totally agree with you.
Yeah, and you don't have time. You receive, maybe they are coming, they are new, so you even don't know them. You have 4 or 5 weeks before starting the season, and you want to train more strength, but you never know when, because maybe they are friendly matches. So this is complicated a lot of things. This work should be done in the academy, so they have to be ready.
Yes,
And much
and
easier.
also, Franco, for example, the problem that we have, for example, 3-4 young players with a very good talents, and they need strength. They need strength. They need to train. But the problem is that, and this is a big problem, because at the end, when you have 2 games per week, you don't have the window to do this, because the problem is when the player go to the game, but go to the bench, because also you cannot push the players, because if in any case he has to play in the second half, for example, but at the end these players and the fitness and the adaptation to football is going down. Going down because it's very difficult. I like, this is also a different topic, but I like that the players go to the second team sometimes to play, because at the end you can have 1 player and one young player and 3 months he didn't play, and also you cannot push him during the training. You cannot put more strength training sessions, because he has to be in the bench on Thursday and he has to be in the bench on Sunday for doing nothing, and at the end you cannot push in the correct way.
Totally. This is another round table, Franco. So today we now from here we had 2 new round tables. One is conditioning academy, and the second, what happened with the players that are young playing in the first teams, second teams. This is a very classic topic and very interesting one.
Yeah.
Okay, my friends, Alfredo, I don't know if you want to add something.
It's okay.
It's okay. So let's close this first round table. For me, it's a pleasure. I could be here all the day talking with you guys. And so I don't know if you want to add something, Sergio, Franco, Luis, Alfredo.
Thank you for your time. For my side, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
No, for me, thank you to all of you. For me, it's a pleasure to discuss and to meet with all of you, and thank you.
Okay, ciao, my friends. See you in the next edition.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.